What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to White Whale Fishing. Hey, today we are talking about flukes. Springtime is here, like almost here. And if we're talking about confidence baits, whether I'm in Florida or I'm in Indiana, a soft plastic jerkbait is definitely a confidence bait for me. And a lot of people don't have confidence in fishing this. And it is so simple. In my opinion, the reason why a soft plastic fluke works so well in so many conditions, because I believe it triggers a strike. Sometimes that erratic action is all that a bass that is not actively feeding needs to see in order for it to react to it. A soft plastic jerkbait can be a dynamite way to trigger bass. So there's a lot of different ways you can rig this. It's a really versatile bait. You can fish it at the top of the water column, you can fish it in the middle, you can fish it on the bottom. But a lot has to do with your choice of hook and how that hook gets rigged into this bait. And that's what I'm hoping to show you guys a little bit more today. Let's jump in. I've got two extra wide gap hooks here, same size, but very different hook shape with regards to the bend right here. And this is critical in my opinion. This hook, the red hook, is going to keep your bait more secure than this hook. And I'll show you what I mean. How you would typically rig a soft plastic fluke is you go in through the top and you're gonna eventually come out the belly, right? Or the neck. And with this type of hook, once you've got it rigged, it's very easy for this hook to eventually slide down the shank right there. That's why I would highly recommend that you guys go with this type of hook, because of that angle, of that bend, it's much more difficult for your fluke to slide down the shaft. Does that make sense? Cool. So that's super important tip number one. These KVD grip pins do a really good job of holding your fluke in place. Now you have the hook that you want to use. I typically use a 4/0 or a 5/0 for a Zoom super fluke, and that's what this is, a super salty fluke. Now you have to think about, how do I want to fish this? Do I want to fish this near the top, or do I want to fish this subsurface and maybe the middle or even the bottom of the water column? Because how you rig this matters quite a bit. Let's say you want to fish this near the top of the water column. You want this bait to sit up high. You even want it to kind of leap out of the water a little bit on jerks. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to come into the bait way deeper than you think. And you are actually going to bury the eye of the hook inside your bait. You won't even be able to see it. Right? Now you're going to Texas rig it, just like you normally would. You go through the belly, and then you Texpose it here on top. The reason you're going to do this, and the reason this works, is because the hook is more centered towards the middle of the bait. It's not nose heavy. So this is going to cause the bait to sit up high in the water column. Now let's say you want to fish the bait subsurface, middle of the water column, and you want it to dive down deep. Well, then you're going to need to come out of the nose pretty early. And you want the eye of that hook to be coming out the top of the bait. The reason you do this is because now the majority of the hook weight is forward. It's on this area of the bait, and that's going to cause the bait to sink nose down, which is going to prevent it from staying up high. Make sense? Hopefully it does. Something to consider when choosing hooks also is the gauge, right? A heavy gauge hook like this is going to cause the bait to sink faster. A lighter gauge hook like this will pull it down less quickly. All right, great. We talked about hooks. Now I want to talk about other ways to fish this, because you can fish this. This is a super versatile bait. It's a 4-wheel drive. You can throw this on a shaky head, and you can flip it into beds. No joke, works really well. You can fish it in deep water this way. You can throw this on a wobble head and cast it out and let it sink to bottom and retrieve it, and fish it fast, fish it slow. You can rig it on a swim bait hook and rig it weedless, and you can flip it in heavy cover and in holes in the mats. You could punch with it. You could throw it on a Tokyo rig and rig it weedless and literally punch with it. Or you can even fish this deep and just have your bait suspended off the bottom of the floor. So really, really, really versatile bait with regards to how you can fish it. You can also Texas rig it. You can Carolina rig it. You can put this on a buzz bait. You can throw this on a spinner bait. You can throw this on a chatterbait. If you've never seen the way this tail looks on a chatterbait, do yourself a favor. Throw this on a chatterbait. Why are we doing this? To show you that different baits have different sink rates. If you want to fish the bottom of the water column, you're going to want a bait that has a lot of salt and sinks fast. And this is the Gary Yamamoto Fluke, and this bait has a lot of salt and sinks very, very fast, as you can see. Another bait that sinks very, very fast is the Strike King Fluke. See, it pretty much goes straight to the bottom. Some other baits, my favorite jerk bait is the Reaction Innovations. I really like it because it's thick, it's 5.5 inches long, and it casts really easy on a bait caster. So do both of those guys because of their salt content. But you can see that this guy sinks pretty quick as well, right? That's the same jerk bait, just in a different color. And let's take a look at the Zoom Super Fluke. Definitely sinks a little bit slower. Let's take a look at the Berkeley bait. Definitely a little bit slower. Here's Kalen's. Real slow. Sorry, that was Lunker City. This is Kalen's. And you can see that that guy almost wants to float. I think he will sink, but he almost wants to float. And then this is an air baits jerk bait, and that guy's gonna float big time. So I'm gonna try and keep colors pretty simple. Pond guys, you're fishing around bluegill, watermelon red flake Zoom Super Salty Fluke, Houdini or Copperfield Zoom Super Salty Fluke, Houdini, Reaction Innovations Shiver Glide, all fantastic options for you pond guys. Can't go wrong with any of those. If you're trying to imitate bait fish, something like an Arkansas Shiner is never a bad idea. This smoke color is dynamite, gray, black back, blue, silver glitter. Very, very similar one here. Excellent bait fish imitation. And then obviously something in like a sexy shad or even an albino. You know, if you're fishing some really murky water, this will always help stand out. But that's pretty much as simple as I keep it with regards to colors. So let's talk a little bit about why sink rate is important. Well, you've got to think about, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to imitate bait fish in cold water? You may want something with a slower sink rate. Are you trying to imitate a shad die-off? You may want to imitate something with maybe a little bit of a faster sink rate. Are you fishing Carolina rig and you want to keep it up off the bottom? You may want to fish something that floats. So these are all types of things that you have to consider. Are you fishing a wobblehead, you know, and you want that tail to stay off the bottom a little bit? Well, then you probably don't want to throw that Yamamoto Senko because it has a lot of salt in it. Do you want to fish the top of the water column, but you want your bait to sink fast? Well, then maybe you hook it, you rig it the right way, and then you fish a bait with a lot of salt so it sinks fast. A lot of manipulation can be done when it comes to jerk baits in this way, and that's why it's such a versatile bait. You can rig it weedless, you can flick it under trees, you can flip it into cover, you can put it in areas where you can't put a jerkbait with treble hooks, but you can still elicit that gut reaction from the fish that just says, I need to eat this now before it gets away. That's the reason that I think jerkbaits are so versatile and so awesome. So with regards to tackle, what do I throw a soft plastic jerkbait on? It really depends on what jerkbait I'm throwing. I really like to throw the Reaction Innovations Shiver Glide, and I would typically throw that on a bait casting setup, 10 or 12 pound test. The reason I like the bait casting setup is because I can really set the hook well and make sure that that hook point comes through that soft plastic. If I was going to be throwing the Zoom Super Fluke, I'll probably choose a spinning outfit, something like, you know, a 2500 size reel and a 7-foot medium action rod. And that's something we didn't talk about. If you guys have never thrown a fluke on a drop shot, that's definitely something you should look into, especially if that's a confidence technique for you. But ultimately, whether you're beating the banks or fishing from a kayak, or spinning rod or bait caster, there's a fluke out there for you. You just got to stop fluking around and start throwing it. A jerkbait's a huge, huge confidence bait for me. I really find that it excels in the spring and in the fall, but hopefully you guys can give it a shot this year if you've never tried it, and if you have, maybe you learned something new. I appreciate each and everybody watching. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there in these crazy times with the coronavirus. Don't forget, be kind to one another. Everybody's scared, everybody's nervous. Let's not pass judgment on one another. Let's help one another survive in these rough times. But I've got some great content coming for you guys this weekend. I will see you on the water Saturday morning. Hopefully you're able to fish. Until next time, peace out, tight lines. Adios.